The Bloodiest Easter, the 1918 Spring Offensive. Easter, a time of rebirth, peace, and celebration. But in 1918, Easter fell in the middle of one of the most brutal and desperate offensives of the First World War. Instead of hope, it brought death. Instead of resurrection, it became a crucible of fire. Welcome to the Bloodiest Easter. It was the spring of 1918. World War I had dragged on for nearly 4 years, bleeding Europe dry. But a shift was coming. Russia had exited the war after the Bolshevik Revolution, and Germany quickly moved over 50 divisions from the Eastern Front to France. For the first time in years, Germany had numerical superiority. German General Erich Ludendorff saw his moment. Before American forces could arrive in full, he planned a knockout blow. He called it Kaiserschlacht, the Kaiser's battle. It would begin with Operation Michael, an ambitious assault through the Somme region to smash through the Allied lines, split the British and French armies, and seize the vital railway hub of Amiens. The offensive was set for March 21st. The timing? Deliberate. It would reach its climax over Easter weekend. At exactly 4:40 a.m. on March 21st, 1918, the ground shook. A 5-hour artillery barrage unlike anything seen before erupted across a 40-mile front. Over 1 million shells fell in just 5 hours. Poison gas, smoke, shrapnel. The sky was torn apart. A British officer described it as the most tremendous cannonade I shall ever hear. When the guns lifted, Germany's elite stormtroopers surged forward in the fog. These weren't traditional trench assaults. These were lightning raids, infiltration tactics, flanking maneuvers, shock troops moving fast and deep behind the lines. The British Fifth Army crumbled under the weight of the attack. Within hours, entire sectors had collapsed. Thousands were captured. The front, which had hardly moved in years, suddenly shifted by miles. By March 23rd, German troops were crossing the devastated Somme battlefield from 1916, a place they had lost at great cost 2 years before. This time, they swept through like a tide. But success came with a price. German units moved faster than their supplies. Stormtroopers outran their artillery. Some soldiers stopped to loot British supply depots. The deeper they went, the more vulnerable they became. By March 26th, the crisis was so severe, the Allies did something unthinkable. They unified command. For the first time in the war, British and French forces were under a single leader, General Ferdinand Foch. Still, the Germans pressed on. On March 30th, Easter Eve, the fighting reached its most dramatic moment. Imagine it: machine guns, barbed wire, trench warfare, and suddenly, cavalry. At Marooy Wood, Canadian cavalry spotted a retreating German column. Major Gordon Flowerdew shouted, "It's a charge, boys!" and led his men into a full-speed saber attack. It was a scene out of another century. They smashed into the German rearguard, but the price was horrific. Of the 100 riders, barely half survived. Flowerdew was mortally wounded. He died on Easter Sunday, earning a posthumous Victoria Cross. It may have been the last great cavalry charge in Western military history. Their stand delayed the German advance and helped save Amiens. March 31st, Easter Sunday. Instead of hymns, soldiers heard the thunder of guns. Instead of communion, there was combat. British, French, and Australian troops dug in desperately around Amiens. On that same day, 75 miles away, Paris was under fire from a German supergun, the Paris gun. A shell landed on a church during Good Friday service, killing 88 civilians. German propaganda proudly called their artillery shells Easter eggs for Paris. Across the front, fighting raged. Villers-Bretonneux, just outside Amiens, changed hands in vicious back-and-forth attacks. Australians and British troops launched daring night raids to hold the line. And then came April 4th. Germany threw 15 divisions at the Allied lines in one last desperate attempt to seize Amiens. It was their last gamble. The fighting was savage. The Allies counterattacked under cover of darkness, bayonets fixed. The Germans made no progress. On April 5th, Ludendorff called it off. The advance had stalled. Amiens was still in Allied hands. In just 2 weeks, Germany had gained more ground than at any other point in the war, but at a terrible cost. Nearly 240,000 German casualties, 255,000 Allied, and they had failed. The spring offensive bled Germany dry. They had thrown their best men into the fight and could not replace them. The Allies, meanwhile, were learning. Within months, they would launch their own offensive. And this time, they wouldn't stop until Germany surrendered. The Bloodiest Easter wasn't just a turning point in the war. It was a moment of bitter irony, a holy season marked by some of the war's most horrific violence. A cavalry charge in the machine gun age, church bells drowned by artillery, Easter eggs turned into weapons. It was Easter 1918, and it was soaked in blood. In the trenches of history, Easter once rang with the echoes of gunfire and sacrifice, lest we forget the price paid not just in battles, but on the days we hold most sacred. Subscribe and support the channel for more forgotten history.